I would now like to welcome our sponsors for the closing keynote session. The Institute for Performance Improvement develops, certifies, and supports improvement facilitators, including K-12 school improvement specialists. It's my pleasure to introduce Deb Page, President of the Institute for Performance Improvement, who will share some of the great work TIFPI is doing and introduce our keynote speaker, Anna Nixon.
Hi, I'm Deb Page, and I'm president of the Institute for Performance Improvement, and I'm so pleased to be welcoming our keynote closing speaker today. Who can believe we're at the end of this great conference? My organization partners and collaborates with SREB, and what we do is we train and certify school improvement specialists and other types of facilitators who their jobs are to go into complex situations, solving complex problems, innovating, in settings where collaboration is needed, and they work as neutral facilitators. The research that SREB has done points to the value of what they call sector partnerships, and that's where you bring together K-12, post-secondary, trade unions, professional associations, groups of employers within certain sectors. For example, you might have manufacturing, you might have aviation, you might have logistics and the like. They come together, and rather than a single school system, being able to have to figure out how do you partner with all these different partners for our career pathways and for our personalized learning and that type of thing, they come together in sector partnerships along with their chambers of commerce, workforce development. All the stakeholders come to the table, and they figure out how do we begin K-12 to collaboratively work together to prepare so that we have the type of workforces that we need. And SREB has found that this requires having some type of neutral convener or vested partner as a convener, but it also requires having someone with the facilitation skills to help people work together in collaborative ways when we may come from many diverse backgrounds. And so those that we train, whether they're school improvement specialists or they're these neutral facilitators, or they're simply people who work inside an organization whose goal is to help their organization and the people that work in it perform better. No matter who we're training, they support in some way, when we collaborate, student success and career learning, life, and development of a skilled workforce. What this requires is engaging kids, and what SREB tells us with the research is in solving real-world challenges and inspiring students to become curious, being persistent learners, and making sure that both their academic and non-academic skills are needed to succeed. Our presenter today, our closing keynote, Anna Nixon, is one of those types of students that these partnerships help support. She's a co-founder of STEM for Girls. It's a nonprofit dedicated to inspiring young people to pursue opportunities in learning in STEM fields. She herself is an award-winning roboticist, speaker, teacher, leader. In her public talks, she stresses the importance and impact of tech ed, technology trends, what that's doing to our workforce, what that means for us in preparing students. She encourages girls to pursue STEM, and she really helps us be conscious of the generational changes caused by technology and education. Not too long ago, she said the value of schooling lies in the critical thinking skills that allow us to solve a variety of problems. By showing students the real-world applications of what they're learning, they're more likely to stay engaged. That's exactly what a sector partnership is for, and the facilitators that we develop are the glue that holds those partnerships together and helps them work together. Now, Nixon is an example of the type of student that these partnerships support, and it all began when she was in second grade. Her father brought home a small robotics kit, and the rest is history. Hers is the story that we dream of all young girls being able to pursue. In elementary school, she learned about the engineering process, working as a team. She could present her own ideas. In middle school, she started her own robotics team. In high school, she became the software lead and vice president of her high school robotics team. And then her design projects have won her accolades and awards from like the Ant-Man Microtech Challenge, MIT Think Tank, the Junior Humanities and Science Symposium. She's delivered TEDx talks and presented on stages with international experts in this field. She is now a junior computer science major at the University of Pennsylvania, and she continues to pursue hands-on learning. For example, her university, she's a member of the Formula Society of Automotive Engineers team, Penn Electric Racing, where she applies her engineering skills to build electric race cars. What a wonderful background, and surely what a wonderful future. And she wants to talk to us about that future and our students and what we can do. Welcome, Anna Nixon.
This is Asha, an Indian elephant. And you're probably wondering why you're looking at an elephant during the Making Schools Work conference. But I promise you, we'll get there. When Asha was young, she was taught that she could only go as far as the boundary rope allowed her. And now, 10 years later, as a fully grown elephant, she has more than enough power to break that boundary rope with minimal force. But she can't. Her childhood experiences have set limits on the rest of her life. Now, imagine if we could change those childhood experiences or help her to learn to overcome those limits in her head. Today, I won't be talking about Asha or elephants in general, but about teaching people how to break their limits. And that's where all of you come in. Education gives students the power to reach new heights, unlock opportunities, and break the boundaries they never thought could be broken. Not only does it provide students with skills and knowledge, but it also the experiences and challenges that will change their life. In order to create these meaningful experiences, it's essential that classrooms incorporate unique and innovative approaches to education. Hands-on education, especially in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, is extremely important in today's day and age because so much of what we do and use in our day-to-day lives is built on the back of those subjects. And the critical thinking skills that students learn through them are valuable regardless of the field that they choose to enter when they graduate. STEM is all around us. It's inescapable, and it's very important that we teach students how to be comfortable in those subjects and learn to have at least a fondness for that. I'm a very lucky student to have so many wonderful teachers to thank. But there's one teacher in particular that I would like to take a moment to thank right now. Mr. Torres, my 4th grade science teacher. Up until that point, I never really had a favorite subject in school, but his class quickly changed that. Primarily because we spent so much of our time outside of the classroom. He went out of his way to sign our whole class up for a program called the Disney Planet Challenge. This was a challenge for students to learn about the environment and learn about the science concepts that were present in the world around us. We learned about native and invasive species. We'd spend our class time learning different aspects of biology and botany. And then, once a week, he'd walk with all of us to a neighboring college campus where he showed us the plants that we'd learned about, and we also got to see the concepts we discussed in class play out in real life by planting over 300 native trees over the course of our project. We learned about things like water quality and ecosystems by quite literally getting our hands dirty. And it was an incredible experience. Not only that, we had to really understand the topics that we had learned because we were told to present them afterwards. This process of learning in the classroom and then reinforcing that learning through hands-on learning opportunities made this the most fun class I've ever had. And I still remember those lessons he taught us well over 10 years later. I will walk down the street and see plants and be able to identify them because that knowledge was drilled into my head since I was able to make connections to the things that we were learning in the classroom every time we went outside of the classroom. Mr. Torres made learning about science fun and approachable. And he also showed me how important it was to reinforce classroom lessons with hands-on experiences. After I graduated from his class, I made sure to seek out other opportunities to apply the knowledge I was gaining in my classes because seeing applications of theoretical concepts grounded them and helped me understand them better. Throughout the rest of elementary school, middle school, and high school, I was involved in a robotics program called FIRST. for inspiration and recognition of science and technology. First is different types of challenges for different grade levels, and students work in teams to solve a new challenge each year using robotics. Although all of the teams that I participated in were structured as after-school activities, we met other students who took part in FIRST challenges as part of their curriculum. It was a great way to keep applying what we were learning in our classes, and the best part was that the program grew with us. As we got older, we were able to use things that we learned in our science and math classes to build and program bigger, better, and more complex robots. There were always new heights to achieve, which kept us motivated and interested in learning. In elementary school, I participated in junior FLL and FLL, which were the first two levels of FIRST, where we learned about the design process, about presentation skills, and about teamwork. We started out with small robots that used drag and drop programming that had a pretty low barrier to entry, so it was very accessible and not very intimidating at all. And then gradually in middle school, I got more comfortable with coding with C++ and building using Metal, learning about different power tools. And in high school, I was able to do even more by incorporating the lessons we were learning in my math and science classes to build complex autonomous programs and giant robots that shot basketballs and frisbees. We also learned how to weld and use power tools. There were so many incredible experiences that this program brought us. It also let us do things like work with local companies to create robots that warded away geese, work with other students to give them other learning opportunities by running workshops. And it was an incredible experience for teaching us lessons not strictly related to STEM, but life lessons as well in teamwork, cooperation, and presentation. Now, I was a lucky student because my learning was never limited to the classroom. Participating in robotics unlocked countless doors for me, and I wanted to give other students the same opportunities. So in 2015, I co-founded STEM for Girls with my sisters and my father. STEM for Girls allowed us to provide mentorship and funding to different teams in our area, as well as coordinate various other STEM-related outreach activities. Now, robotics is a fairly high investment activity since you need kits and supplies, which are sometimes not affordable or practical in certain situations. However, there are still a variety of ways to introduce STEM, and especially coding, to students through free software like Scratch. Scratch is a drag and drop programming interface, so it's really easy to get acclimated to, and it's fun. Students can do various things, create animations. My sisters really enjoyed this program. They used to create different warrior movies using programming, and it was a nice creative outlet as well as a great learning opportunity. In elementary school, one of the first ways I learned programming was through another very similar program called Alice, where you use drag and drop programming to create 3D animations. So I would build out stories and create replicas of the stories that I was reading through programming. In some of our STEM for Girls workshops, one of the programs that I was particularly fond of using to teach students as an introduction to coding was Pencil Code. Pencil Code was an amazing tool because, again, it was free, easy to use, and it allowed young kids to learn the basics of programming by drawing, using coding and math. These programs are incredible, not only because they have a very low barrier to entry, but also because they let students approach STEM and engineering through a creative lens. Oftentimes, when we think of these subjects, they're viewed as rigid, having a definitive right and wrong answer, and that's not true. There's actually a lot of creativity and imagination involved in all of these disciplines that students may not see until much later on. Approaching them as creative activities first and foremost can make them less intimidating and more engaging, especially to younger students and students who are often discouraged from pursuing STEM careers. Because sometimes all it takes is that first little spark to get students hooked for life. By thinking creatively, it's possible to still deliver hands-on learning opportunities, even in the midst of various restrictions and unseen circumstances like the current pandemic. This year, STEM for Girls ran an agriculture challenge to encourage students to learn about STEM in their own backyards. Students were asked to form teams and come up with unique proposals relating to agriculture, which often isn't the first subject when you think of STEM. But they submitted ideas ranging from hydroponic systems to beekeeping to space minimizing gardens, and all of them had a very strong root in science, technology, engineering, and math. I had the privilege to hear from some of these student teams all the way in India, where the COVID crisis is still high. And it was both incredibly humbling and inspiring. Despite everything going on and their limited access to resources, they were able to do so much work and put together a variety of interesting plans. They were given general guidelines and they were able to come up with so much on their own. They collected data from smaller experiments in their individual homes since they were restricted from meeting constantly due to the pandemic. And since a lot of the supplies that they needed were able to find at home, they were able to do a lot on their own and then come together to combine their findings to work on these proposals. Not only did the teams learn about the biology behind growing crops, they also spoke to us about engineering different structures to increase yield, about budgeting, teamwork, and wiring up sensors to monitor and automate certain parts of their design. It was incredible to see how creative they were able to get. And another really neat aspect of this was how they were able to involve the community as well. For example, one of the teams wanted to incorporate beehives into their design. So they reached out to neighbors who worked with bees for a living in order to get firsthand knowledge to incorporate into their projects. Small projects catered to the communities that students are in can make it easier to include hands-on project-based learning into curriculum, whether or not you're working with students in a traditional setting. Being able to come up with ways that students can work on these opportunities without having to need extra resources that they can't find at home and taking advantage of the resources that they do have in their area can make it more accessible and give many more students these opportunities. This brings us back to Asha. Just like Asha, the elephant you met at the beginning of this presentation, there are countless students who don't even realize how much they've been limiting themselves simply because they're never given the opportunity to see how much they can do. Women and minority students especially are often discouraged from exploring hobbies related to STEM at younger ages, or simply don't have the resources to do so, which can keep them from discovering an interest in these fields even as they grow older. And the first step to changing that is giving them the opportunity to step outside those boundaries and providing an environment that encourages them to do so without fear. Our focus on standardized tests and the widespread perception of STEM as a set of subjects that are black and white with definitive rights and wrongs prevents students from taking risks and learning as much as they can. It also makes students hesitant to ask for help and grow. Now, I remember attending a tech conference for the very first time in high school. And as various speakers walked on stage and talked about the problems and shortcomings of their product teams, I was shocked. They were the same issues that our teams had in robotics. And we had always assumed that those mistakes wouldn't apply to adults because they would obviously know better. That's what we were taught, that we were to strive for perfection, and that's how the real world works. But from what I heard, they absolutely didn't. That made me realize that no one truly understands what they're doing. Even professionals with years and years of experience make mistakes. But what matters most is being able to communicate that with others. One of the biggest challenges that those product teams talked about was not being able to communicate issues quickly enough because people were afraid of admitting their mistakes. More important than error-free solutions is a willingness to see and identify errors and discuss them and learn from them. That's what matters in the real world. Hands-on collaborative learning projects are a great way to teach this, since there are always going to be unexpected problems that arise. Framing those problems as learning opportunities rather than failures and an opportunity to think creatively can help students feel more comfortable in making mistakes. And when students are comfortable speaking up and asking questions, that allows them to make the most of their education and break the limits that they've set on themselves. As teachers and educators, you play a large role in raising the children of tomorrow's future. But as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. Many teachers I know do not have the time, and many schools do not have the resources they need to implement all of these ideas themselves. That's where looking to the community can be especially helpful. There are numerous organizations, like STEM for Girls, established on both the national and local level that have resources, workshops, and volunteers that are willing to help out. First robotics teams, for example, pride themselves on doing outreach activities and are often looking for classrooms that they can come into in order to present or lead workshops and after-school programs to get other students involved. They love talking about the robots they're building because it's a source of pride for them. And oftentimes, seeing other kids do things that they never thought possible can be super inspiring. One thing that all FIRST robotics teams that I've encountered know is mentoring other teams. Often when a team starts at a school, they'll create a sister team or that for younger students as well. And then both these teams can grow together. Another often overlooked resource are local companies. I'm currently an intern at a tech firm in Portland, and our office is full of employees who are more than willing to donate their time as mentors. And the company has a budget to support different activities to encourage kids in STEM, but they often don't know where to go with it. There's a lot of potential mentors and donors that have time and money to spare to help incorporate these lessons into your classrooms or work with schools to establish extracurricular activities that can provide students with these opportunities outside of school to supplement their learning. Now, I hope that these are some ways that you can reach out to the community so that you can provide these opportunities for students if it's not possible to do so yourselves, since I know that you as teachers already do so much for our students. I'd like to sincerely thank all of you for the work that you've done in order to help students continue their education in a time filled with so much uncertainty. I know it has probably been just as difficult, if not more difficult, to be a teacher as it has been to be a student over the course of the past year. It was difficult to be thrown into virtual classrooms, formulate hybrid course plans, and for some of you, retransition back into in-person learning. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all your students for all the effort that you've put in for us. I hope that this keynote and also the past 3 days of sessions from wonderful speakers has given you inspirations and ideas to take home with you. Now, since many of you are teachers, you're very familiar with the concept of homework, but how long has it been since you've been given homework? Today, I'm just asking you for one thing. Get creative. Get creative with how you can implement a few of the things you've learned over the course of this week. There is never a one-size-fits-all solution to teaching, but I know there has to be at least one small element that you can adapt into your own classroom. Good luck.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon. We appreciate your participation in our conference and wish you the best as you continue your studies and advocacy. As we begin to wind down this year's event, I am so pleased to invite you to the 2022 Making Schools Work Conference, which we'll host at the Gaylord Texan Resort and Convention Center in Grapevine, Texas. This premier professional learning event will be held July 19th through the 22nd, 2022, and I'm excited to share that registration and session submissions are open now. Everything is bigger in Texas, and that undoubtedly includes the Gaylord Texan. Standing on the shores of Lake Grapevine with 4.5 acres of indoor gardens, several world-class restaurants, a 10-acre outdoor water park, a seasonal resort pool, and an indoor lap pool, this is a hotel that can only make its home in the Lone Star State. Conference attendees from across the nation will enjoy its convenient location near Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport, as well as Grapevine Mills, Legoland, and Cowboys Golf Club. We're looking forward to seeing you in person next summer. Immediately following this conference, you'll find on the SREB website information about reserving rooms at the Gaylord Texan Hotel and making travel plans and registering. I encourage you to consider submitting a proposal to present a session as well. Personally, I can't wait for us to be together again to learn, collaborate, and network. The 2022 conference promises to be our best, and you don't want to miss it. I offer you my best wishes as you prepare for the school year. SREB stands ready to assist you as needed. Please contact any member of the school improvement staff to learn about our professional learning services and resources. If we do not cross paths in person this year, I'll see y'all in Texas next summer. Take care.